Welcome to this episode of Best of America by Horseback. I'm Tom C. with my good friend Dale Shields and Kristen Bisco. We're in Clay County, Missouri. And on this episode, we're going to go back in time and visit the Jesse James history. And we're going to be talking about the things we're doing here at this festival.
Yeah, we're here at the Jesse James birthplace, the farm where Jesse grew up. There's a lot of history to be learned here. We're going to see all that on this episode. Stay tuned with us.
We'll take you to the Jesse James Festival, which has a parade. At the Jesse James Park, there's all kinds of fun things going on, including a craft fair, vendors, carnival rides, and then the rodeo this evening.
We have friends that have ridden with us in the past, as well as new friends we're making here. You stay tuned. We'll be right back from Best of America by Horseback.
Jesse James, the name and the man are known throughout the world as a famous outlaw. On this two-part series of Best of America by Horseback, we are in Clay County, Missouri, birthplace of Jesse James, attending the annual Jesse James Festival. We will show you many of the activities you can enjoy at the festival, including the rodeo and parade, which passes right by the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, believed to be one of the first banks robbed by Jesse James in broad daylight. We will tour that bank and other historic landmarks around the county. We will camp and ride horses at the beautiful Smithville Lake County Park that rivals most state parks around the country. We will show you the trails, the equestrian camping facilities, and also other activities and amenities available in this beautiful park. Kristen spoke with Clay County Commissioner Lou Ann Ridgway about the equestrian camping facilities and trails at the park.
We have shared use with the farmers, which of course is very attractive to the wildlife. And so you see lots of beautiful views with that. You're also going to see small waterfalls. You're going to see rock embankments along our horseback riding trails. So it really is a varied environment that people will have a lot of opportunities to see different things. The biggest improvement that we have is now we have a livestock pavilion that can actually be used for many different uses. It's a multi-purpose building. It was designed as such. Right now we have it set up for stables, and that will continue to stay that way, so equestrian travels know that they can come and have a state-of-the-art facility that's probably one of the best facilities in the Midwest to be able to overnight your horses where it's a roof over their head. They can be in dry stalls.
It's a pretty nice big stall too.
Yeah, it's a 12 by 12 stall. And so we do have options available, and we're continuing to work to see if we can turn our 20 horse barn into some instances maybe a 40 horse barn, because if you've got stable buddies, the stalls are big enough that you could put 2 horses in one stall. You can have panels and tie-outs, and we also have very large posts in the ground for people who are used to picketing their horses. We have that as an available option. If people want to come here for the day, there's free parking available at a location called Jackrabbit Bend. And that's very conveniently located because if you go more southwest from Jackrabbit Bend, you're on the wider, a little more improved county-maintained trails. We have miles of those. But if you go back toward the east, you're on trails that are largely maintained by volunteers, but expertly maintained. And there's miles and miles of trails that are on Army Corps land that go to the east that have, again, beautiful views of the lake as well as woodland views.
But a trip to Clay County, Missouri would not be complete without a stop at the Jesse James Farm and Museum in Kearney. The boldness and flamboyance of Jesse James as a bank and train robber, along with sensational publicity he received at that time, made him a legend. During the Jesse James Festival, Tom and other guests were invited in small groups throughout the day to ride on the Jesse James farm. They rode to and around the restored family home, back to where the legend began.
We're here at the Jesse James birthplace. A lot of history to be learned here. We're going to be learning about Jesse's boyhood and the legendary life of Jesse James.
Jesse Woodson James was born on September 5, 1847, to Robert James and Zerelda Elizabeth Cole, a middle child to an older brother, Alexander Franklin, or Frank James, and younger sister, Susan Lavina James.
Jesse's mother and father were from Kentucky, and they came here in the 1840s to visit her parents, who were living just a few miles north of this farm.
Robert James was a graduate from Georgetown College who married Zerelda Cole on December 28, 1841, and helped to found William Jewell College in 1849. After the founding of the college, he left for California in April of 1850 to prospect for gold and preach to the gold miners during the gold rush. He arrived in California in August, but quickly contracted cholera and died on August 18, 1850. Jesse and Frank James didn't become infamous outlaws until December 7, 1869, when Jesse and Frank attempted to rob the Daviess County Savings Association in Gallatin, Missouri, where Jesse killed Captain John Sheets, the cashier, having mistaken him for Samuel P. Cox, the man who had killed Bloody Bill Anderson during the Civil War. And shortly after his public declaration of vengeance, Missouri Governor Thomas Crittenden publicly declared Jesse James an outlaw and set a reward for his capture. Jesse James' fame would quickly rise from this point on as he delivered anti-Unionist and pro-Confederate letters to the Kansas City Times editor and owner, John Newman Edwards, who would then publish editorial after editorial on Jesse.
Everything was related, and so many of the settlers to Missouri were from the South, so they had Southern leanings. Many of the families that came here brought their slaves with them. So this was a Southern stronghold, and it kind of just depended on where you were from. It's how you felt during the Civil War.
Jesse and his brother Frank would eventually team up with former Quantrell Raider members, the Younger brothers, to form the James Younger Gang. Their robberies exclusively targeted safes and vaults of pro-Union supporters or former Union soldiers and bank owners, while leaving innocent civilians largely unmolested, giving them a Robin Hood-like appearance, despite never redistributing their earnings. As the gang's infamy grew, eventually the Pinkerton Detective Agency was hired by the Adams Express Company to put an end to their robberies. The Pinkertons were relentless in their pursuit of the James Younger Gang and didn't pull any punches when trying to apprehend or kill the gang members wherever the opportunity arose. Despite the Pinkertons' efforts and several bloody and vicious encounters, it was Charlie and his brother Robert Ford who eventually put an end to Jesse James on April 3, 1882, with a single bullet to the back of Jesse's head.
As soon as Jesse died, and people found out who he really was, because he was living under an alias for so many years, people started flocking out here to the farm. It became a tourist attraction. And she would sell pebbles from the creek. She would go get some rocks and throw on the grave and sell them for a quarter piece. We still sell them up in the gift shop for a quarter piece with a little history about the story. After she died, Frank James lived here, and he did the same thing. Greeted visitors. Frank's son did the same thing. After he was gone, Jesse's 3 grandsons took over and did the same thing until they all got elderly, and then Clay County purchased the farm.
We're at the Jesse James Farm on Best of America by Horseback with Dale, Kristen, and all of her friends. We'll be right back.
The Jesse James Bank and Museum is located in downtown Liberty. This is the location of the first daylight bank robbery in the United States. It is believed to have been Jesse James's first bank robbery, which was led by his former Civil War bushwhacker commander, Archie Clement. Clement is also believed to have been the one to inspire Jesse James to become a bank robber after the Civil War ended. When visiting, you can see the safe in the vault where the gang took over $58,000 in cash and bonds, which is equivalent to just under $1 million in today's standards. The vault and the safe has been there since the bank was built in 1859. You can see how the teller window would have been set up with bank books holding records for the account holders. The Jesse James Bank and Museum is a great place to visit while in Clay County, Missouri, where you can learn even more about the bank robbery and the James Younger Gang.
The Jesse James Festival is a perfect example of small town United States, just hometown pride. It's a beautiful experience that lasts almost a week long, culminating, of course, with the parade on Saturday of the event, which is an extremely well-attended event. And then afterwards, everybody starts migrating to the festival grounds where there's a carnival and booths and just fun entertainment. And then later on that evening, they have good old-fashioned rodeo.
Is it the same time each year?
Yes, it's the third weekend of September every year, so you can set your calendar by it.
The weekend's festivities included a fun day filled with special opportunities for our crew and the riders. Saturday morning, we rode in the Jesse James Festival Parade through downtown Kearney. The great people of Clay County and the Kearney Saddle Club worked out all the details on trailering the parade participants' horses from the campground to the staging area, our spot in the parade, and getting everyone back safely. Of course, Tom and Dell found ways to involve the crowd on more than one occasion, as Tom picked out Dell's next target to sing as we made our way through the route. We enjoyed seeing all the kids so excited to see the horses in the parade. The Jesse James Festival Parade kicks off the conclusion of a week-long celebration honoring their hometown outlaw, Jesse James. This parade had everything from dance groups to local businesses to even politicians and Santa Claus. There were church groups, radio stations, ride clubs, and even our new friends from the Kearney Saddle Club and Northland Therapeutic Riding Center. After the parade, the riders, including Tom, Dell, and myself, were treated to a ride at the James Farm. This farm is where Jesse grew up and where his disgust for the Pinkertons began. We were led on a ride with Civil War reenactors and historians who shared the stories about Jesse and his family's farm. We rode up the same fields that the infamous outlaw and his brother would have ridden across to see his mother when passing through. We even had a tour of the museum and house. It's amazing that the family had the forethought to keep the house the same as when Jesse James was alive. You can walk into his mother's house today, see Frank's trunk of Shakespeare books, turn the handles on the doors that Jesse opened, walk the floors that Jesse walked on, see his mother's bed that was most likely where Jesse was born, and see the place where the Pinkertons threw the bomb through the window, hoping to kill Jesse, instead wounding his mother and killing his younger brother.
So there was a point in time when the sentiment towards bankers and it all changed. What caused that?
Well, after the Civil War, most of the Northerners or Yankees were the only ones that had money, so they controlled the bank and the money and the government. And local farmers, which were mostly Southerners, were just trying to make a living, and it was very oppressive to them. So if they went out, when the James gang went out and robbed a bank, the locals would assist them because they seen them as Southerners on their own ground here, and the bankers as foreigners coming in to try and take advantage of the Southern people.
The incident that happened in the house behind us changed it all.
Yes, that's what brought the James family to notoriety. The Pinkertons came out here to try and find the James gang. They threw this device in the window. The family were all in there sleeping at night. They were trying to flush out the gang. They threw a device in the window. It started smoking. The family didn't know what it was. They kicked it into the fireplace. After a while, it heated up, exploded, and killed Frank and Jesse's younger stepbrother, Archie, and maimed their mother's arm, which she had to have amputated twice after that incident. And that gave the public, after it got out in the public, it brought sympathy from eventually countrywide for the James family.
You can see Jesse's original gravesite before he was moved to be laid next to his wife Zerelda in the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Kearney. Most historical places are decorated by historical interpretation of what might have been in the room. However, the James Farm has everything original. Clay County has a variety of history all throughout the county lines, but to be able to come into this county and ride some of the same lands that the great outlaw Jesse James rode is an incredible experience. Part of the Jesse James Festival celebration is the Jesse James Festival Rodeo. Tom, Dell, and I were honored to be a part of the opening ceremony with friend Bud Wackerly of the Kearney Saddle Club and County Commissioner Luann Ridgway. The Jesse James Festival Rodeo is a great way to conclude the day of festivities that started with the parade in downtown Kearney. The rodeo took place at the Jesse James Park, which is a large park that has rodeo grounds and plenty of space for vendors and other fun activities. Just like any rodeo setting, the flag was the first to race around the arena to show off its stars and stripes. Then Bud, Luann, Tom, Dell, and I, followed by Horseback in suit to stand proudly next to our nation's colors. Each of the competing cowboys and cowgirls rode around the arena to wave at the crowd as their name and hometown was called for each of the different competing categories. Then the cowboys were asked to remove their cover and the crowd to bow their heads for a prayer, and each American proudly placed their hands over their hearts for the singing of the national anthem by a local quartet a cappella group. What a beautiful opening ceremony it was, and to see it from next to the flag in the arena has always been a dream of mine. It was a dream of Dell's as well, being a rodeo cowboy in his younger days, to be honored at the beginning of a rodeo. The colors were retired, and we left the arena and the rodeo started. How great it is to see young and old enjoy the same activity together. Rodeos bring out families and friends, and people get to enjoy a little bit of nostalgia as they think of rodeos they went to in their younger days, or watching old westerns. Rodeos take ranch chores and make them into a fun competition, like team roping, bulldogging, or saddle bronc riding. Cowboys and cowgirls come from around the area and sometimes neighboring states to chase those jackpots and silver buckles. The Jesse James Festival Rodeo has team roping, bulldogging, saddle bronc riding, barrel racing, as well as this year, the Rawhide and Dusty Show, along with the James Boys, two beautiful Texas Longhorns. The Wild West Entertainment Show proved to be a fun halftime show.
Join us next week for part 2 of our trip to Clay County, Missouri, birthplace of Jesse James. We will take an extensive look at Smithville Lake Park and the Crows Creek Campground equestrian facilities. We will ride with viewers to show you the trails, the lake, and the amenities the park has to offer equestrian visitors. We will also visit the Northland Therapeutic Riding Center and take a look at other historic and fun places to visit while in Clay County. Join us again next week on Best of America by Horseback.
It is said.
Before it was illegal to pick your kid up by the arm, he'd pick me up and stick me in a saddle with him.
Another thing that comes when you buy property from Outlet Land, that means you get free lifetime riding at East Fork Stable.
The people that live here in this area are great. I mean, talk about people who just pitch in and give you a hand with stuff.
You have access to 400 miles of trails in the northern part of this county.
If you dream it.
Well, you'll have 4, similar to Ohio, but just a lot milder. This just felt more like home, Doc.
It can be.
And let's ride.
You got it, hon.